Good evening and welcome to That BS Show. I'm Kimberly and this is Sara Jean, and we are here to shoot the shit. We did a show last week, but I didn't post it. And I guess I say a little bit why, but we did talk about trafficking, but then it just got a little convoluted and kind of all over the place. And I started to watch replay, and then I just decided I just wasn't gonna post it. So we are here tonight, and it just so happens that P Diddy is all up in the fucking news, so we can. It fits right into the show that we were gonna redo from last week, and um, boy, P Diddy, Puff Daddy. Um,
Yeah, there's been a lot of rumors in general about him, and I mean, even relating to like Tupac and Diddy drama, or Tupac and Biggie Smalls drama, and years and years, there's been like speculations of like he's the one who actually had Biggie Smalls kind of like taken out or whatever because he stood
mhm.
to gain all the money from it. And then he put out that little song with like the sting, like every
Oh
step
yeah.
you. He put that out like right after he died, and like just fucking blew up after that. And I'm pretty sure he had control of Bad Boy Records when
And
before. I'm pretty sure.
I think he pays Sting $2,000 a day for the rest of his life. I saw that on Charlemagne or the morning show.
That
Um,
ghosting, fuck
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
I used to love the Police. I still do. My mom really liked the Police, so she played them a lot when I was a kid. So I know a lot of like Police's
yeah,
things on.
yeah. Well, I grew up with because 97, I think, is when Puffy died, I think, and I graduated. So it's right around that time, and that would have been my 10-year high school reunion. So I really, my 20s, 30s, that was, we were hit to Tupac and Biggie and all that. And so to watch this, it certainly doesn't surprise me. I mean, this has been circulating for a while, and Cat Williams came out at the first of the year, and I think that it certainly wasn't any surprise. I mean, I have a little bit of intel into that world, and we'll get a little bit into it. Um, but I think what I appreciate the most about it, especially since Cat came out at the beginning of this year, and now this coming out, um, I think
Well,
it gives more
he
women
came
a
he
chance, a
he came
voice.
out because this already initially like the case is just now going to trial. So yeah, Diddy got busted for a bunch of weird shit back like right when Cat Williams came out immediately after, and now it's just like now there's just more coming out now. So it's like he's
Yeah,
kind of been in the rap. We just have been waiting to see like where the trial takes us
yeah.
and stuff, and weird details that come out of it. And
And
yeah,
which
it's
videos were going to be leaked, and who actually was on the videos, and of course, um, like the big record executive that they quit a couple days after. Nobody's
mm,
named. Like they didn't go for higher ups. They're clearly it's Puffy, and that's uh
oh yeah, he thought he was like big man, I think, like never gonna get caught. He just had those vibes, like, like he thought he couldn't fall, and it's like
yeah. Well, God, there's so many layers to this, and I've been watching a lot of different interviews, and Jaguar Wright is, she's a powerhouse of a woman, and she took a lot of shit for speaking out, and nobody believed her, and now this is coming out, so the way that it came out. So it's been interesting to watch her take, and boy, she drops the tea. If you Jaguar Wright, if you ever want to, yeah,
drinking some
yeah, she's
iced
dripping
tea.
the tea. um and
Like I'm ready.
when I left LA, I mean, this kind of one of the reasons. I mean, I was ready to leave LA, but you live there long enough, and you know shit, and you hear shit, and um,
I mean,
one
it's
of the
insidious and pervasive through all of the entertainment industry, not
yeah,
just like hip hop, not just
yeah, no,
Diddy, like
it's the whole web, it's the whole thing, and
yeah.
so God, I'm trying to think of where I wanted to kind of start with this because I do have a lot to say on it, and um, this is very complex for me. This is. um, because I could be very gratuitous. I could drop names. I could say a lot, and I'm just that's not where my heart is at when I talk about this subject because I care so deeply about the healing of the trauma that comes from this world, and so and being a part of this world, and so
Yeah, it's more about the healing, not about like clout chasing or drop name
yeah,
dropping and trying to get,
yeah.
yeah.
No, I have no desire to drop any names or be gratuitous with what I've experienced and what I know of this world. Um, so when I know the web, and so this is very complex for me. Um, who I was at 21 and getting caught up, and who I was in my 30s living in LA are two very, I mean, one's very young girl and one's a grown woman. And how I handled myself as a grown woman um, was just you wouldn't have known anything about my life. It was not something that I was ever. I mean, even when I was performing, I wasn't on stage, or I was trying to expose it. I wasn't trying to glorify it. And so, adults doing what adults do is one thing, and that's a whole nother part of the subject. But when you start getting into then the kids, or were they given the drugs, and then you don't consent if you don't know that you're taking drugs, and then this happens. So there's a couple different areas to look at, because the adults that are doing what adults do, I don't, if you start dropping lawsuits and getting, then I have no fucking respect for you. Like you, you're a dirty bitch. But it sounds like, and it seems like, and I would say for sure with like Justin Bieber and this sort of thing, that
And Usher, I think Usher's name is coming up
Usher,
too. Hmm.
yeah, that this, and then today, the Jaguar Wright was saying that Usher was the one that brought Justin there.
Mm.
So this is so deep, and it's so, I mean, I will say one thing that I definitely know for sure, and that I've always said, is that these guys are gay. I've never once not looked at these men and not thought, from the very beginning, even back in my fucking late 20s, early 30s, I never once ever looked at any of these men and thought, boy, they're masculine and straight. I've always been able to like say, like, a lot of these rappers, actors, marriages are, they're designed,
Cover. Yeah, it's a good
yeah, they're
cover.
covers,
Hmm.
they're but, there are times like these that I actually do want to drop some shit on some names, because I know what fucking pieces of shit they are, and I know
It's
it,
like,
but I can't,
gotcha.
'cause, and I won't, um but they're just and a lot of these guys that are being named, living in LA, the I never was invited to any of the puffy parties, but I was invited. Playboy, um, a couple other big names that are named in the book. I'm not going to say them out loud for those, but I have been invited to these parties before,
Right.
and I never had the desire to go. I knew they were trap houses, and they're all over LA. They're all over everywhere. Um, and by trap house, I mean, that everything's wired.
Yeah, that, and also it's like you don't want to, like, if somebody takes a liking to you, like hook you in with money or something like that, it's just like, I've never been to some party like that, but one time I did go to a Halloween party here that, like, one of my good friends, her friend is kind of like, she's a stylist, like a professional stylist. And she invited us to this Halloween party in Vegas. And me and my friend, we were like, yeah, let's go. So me and her go, we get dressed up, we go to this party. And it was a huge fucking mansion, different rooms with like different music in different rooms. And then we like, it was kind of late. It was like getting late. Like, but in Vegas, like after hours parties, like that doesn't end. You can stay there till
Yeah.
whenever, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like 2:33 and like we're like kind of walking around the house and like we go outside. She wants to smoke a cigarette. So we go outside and then there's like three people like boning in the hot tub. And me and Jamie were like, oh shit. Like, we're like, we gotta go. Like, let's go. You know, it was just so funny. Like, and I
Yeah.
was like, well, I never seen that before. I was like, because that's this kind of like rich person party, you know, like
Yeah,
so
it's
funny.
you know, God, it seems like, and it is another life ago, and it seems like forever ago. I was actually talking to a friend today, and I'm like, I can't believe that that was ever my life, and I know that it was my life, and probably that's how I know the healing work that I've done is integrated. Um, I don't have, and that's been pretty intense this last year because when the Cat Williams stuff started coming out, before that even came out, I started having, and I was talking to another friend today about it, that I kept hearing, I can hear it in the, or can you feel it in the air tonight? And I started doing videos to it, and I started posting stuff from LA, and I started talking about trafficking. I was like, I can feel it. It's coming this year. This is the year of the dragon. Something's popping off. And then Cat Williams came out, and so it was a very big year for me because I pulled out a one-woman show that I did in LA, and I really thought that I had healed that time. I mean, I've gone on to be married, have the horse, what I do with the horses, life has moved on. But pulling out that one woman show, I did not realize how much I was repressing, how much rage I still had, how much healing work I still had to do. And that's what this last year has been about. And originally wanting to rewrite it has now turned into, it'll be something, but really what I was writing about and talking about then, now people are talking about it. It's just nobody was talking about it back then. And so
You were
I
ahead of the
actually,
curve. You were ahead of the curve.
very much so. And I actually was like, I'm fucking really lucky I'm alive for as big of a mouth as I had. And for, I mean, yeah, it was, I'm very, very grateful because it, I'm just grateful because it's not a world that it's very easy to not do well. A lot of the girls I know are dead, not because they got murdered or anything, but because
Just the lifestyle.
the
It's a
lifestyle,
fast
the drugs,
lifestyle.
yeah. And I was never in it like that. I just I always had a life above ground. I just knew that world, um and I never wanted to be a part of that world like we're seeing like now. I wanted out of it, so I was trying to expose it. But I did, and I do understand a lot about that world, and I think that um young girls, especially with the way that OnlyFans and the programming, they are being targeted. They're being targeted, and it's cool, I guess, to kind of be because I guess maybe there's not the stigma that when I was young, it was like you didn't. It wasn't something you bragged about. I mean, or at least I never did. I never.
No, there was like a level of not secrecy but privacy to it. Like you respected your
Very much so. It
privacy.
was
You know what I
something that
mean?
you didn't, and I had very famous clients from the beginning, and I never like ever went out and then I had a job. Like I never, it's hard to explain because the first 10 years after I escaped, um, and he was definitely a pimp in my early 20s. It wasn't very long. It was only about 6 months, and he beat the fuck out of me, popped me
I
right
mean
in my
that's long enough. That's a long
popped me
enough.
right in my face. It took me that long to figure out a plan, but it's it's no different than the psychological warfare that Puffy had on people. It is that, and that goes back to the homes because I would not have been susceptible to that if I hadn't been like they said, this starts in the home, and I just think it's an epidemic. And I don't even know if like stuff like this is going to get people to kind of open their eyes about their daughters, because I hear people like, oh, my daughter's not, she's not around that. It's like, wow, I think that's a very naive view for parents to have this day and age.
It is actually, because I have a lot of family who has kids. Like a lot of my family, like when we go to Christmas dinner at my dad and my stepmom's house, it's like all of my cousins have at least two, some of them four. I think my one cousin has five kids. There's babies everywhere. It's lovely. A lot of them, they don't really let them watch TV. They don't let them have the phone. They don't let them have the iPad. And the good thing is the siblings, you know, they all play together and it's so cute. Easter, Christmas, they'll all be outside playing together, playing in the mud with rocks and their little toys, you know, they get to actually be kids. And it like harkens back to my childhood, because a lot of parents, they just don't do that, or like, you know, that their kids at school. So that's another fallacy. Oh, well, my kid doesn't have a phone, so they're not going to see porn or whatever. And then it's like, oh, but all of their friends have phones and all of the little boys are showing him anyways. And it's like, you can't really get around it. You can't control everything, you know? So it's like, that's why it's important to be able to talk to your kids about this stuff and talk to them like adults. Like like somebody close to me, I'm not going to say who, but you know, she has a son that's 14, and they found out he has access to all this stuff, and like he's not just like watching like missionary, it's like really gross categories and stuff. And you know, I think everyone's a little like, they don't know, either know how to say it or talk to him, and I'm like, what do you mean? Like, you just talk to him like an adult. He's watching
Yeah,
adult stuff. He wants to be an adult. Let's talk to him like an adult. Let's tell
yeah,
him why it's harmful. Let's tell him the rates. Let's tell him why it gives men unrealistic expectation of women. Let's tell them how it ruins their actual sex life when they have one. Let's tell them how it makes them look at women like objects instead of human beings. Like, let's talk about how it's harmful to sex industry in general, like what the women go through, how a lot of them are on drugs, or they didn't sign up to even do a lot of the stuff that's done to them. Like, there's all kinds of weird practices that happen. And it's like, if your kid is old enough to watch adult content, you're old enough to just break it down for them like an adult, and don't sugarcoat it and don't freaking beat around the bush. Just be direct, be honest, be scientific, be sexually removed. Don't make it a he. It's not a he joke. It's not funny. And if this makes you uncomfortable, good. Like that's what it's supposed to do. I'm glad you feel uncomfortable talking about it with me. You know what I mean? Like, because it's
yeah. Yeah, and I also think that so many parents, I mean, this bleeds into the Madonna whore complex that I think is an epidemic, and how mothers are raising sons to be a certain way, and why the daughters, I mean, I,
or the sons are the man of the house at an early age
so
because they
they're
have
being
no dad.
enmeshed and they're being parentified. A lot of single mothers, this whole like parentified, we have uh, emotionally immature. I mean, that's across the board. I mean, I think a lot of people even present like they're doing so well, but behind closed doors, they are emotionally immature. And I think there are a lot more, um, uh, well, this Madonna horror complex, the men that, you know, step out on their wives, or they see hookers when they go to Vegas, or what their porn is like. And I will say this, and if any man's watching this, do not think that you are not part of a psyop with your porn, and that they are blackmailing you with it. And they may not be showing up at your fucking house blackmailing you, but they got you by the short and curlies in the back of your subconscious. Like, is there guilt because I'm watching this? And then I guarantee you they are recording your porn usage, and they are going to, at some point, there's some psychological um, uh, play, something like a psyop at play here.
Yeah, like great. If you just have very normal categories, or you don't use it often, maybe when you go out of town or something like that, and like I don't know, you don't want to cheat on your wife, whatever. But like we're not talking about the dudes who are going to look up like
No,
two girls kissing or something. You know what I mean?
yeah, no, that's
We're talking
you're
about
not,
the
you're
ones
not
that,
on the targeted list. I'm
if you're
talking about,
addicted, if you are addicted to porn
yeah,
and you watch it daily or even weekly, multiple times a week to every single day, like I don't know, I don't want to like. It's not that I'm some goody goody. Well, one, I don't need porn if I'm going to get myself off. Let's just say that I don't care. I'm not ashamed. Whatever. I'll talk about it. But the few times that I have, it's never as good, if that makes sense. Than when I use my imagination. It's literally a better climax. So it's like, it's weird when you trigger your imagination, it actually, the whole thing is freaking better. I don't know even know how to describe it. It's a strange thing. Maybe just for women, I don't know, maybe just for me in general, that has been my experience. But
yeah, I've just never had an issue with it being something that was really a huge anything part of my life. I mean, it's just
yeah,
not. It's just
I
not a
don't
thing.
need it.
It's just.
And
It's
honestly, like there's been like a few like ex-boyfriends where like maybe we have, and like I am very lucky. I think all the dudes I have dated that have received any pictures of me, not gonna lie, I've never done that. Shut up, I'm fucking 40 years old. You know what I mean? But they've all been very trustworthy men, like to their
yeah.
credit. Like I don't think that they would ever do anything like that to me. And likewise, I would never do anything to them to harm them, you know? So it's like, I don't
Yeah.
know.
I just
I think,
maybe it's because I just know so much about this world. Maybe I'm very
yeah,
jaded in the sense that. But
hold on one
this.
second. I'm just gonna block out my camera, but you're still gonna hear me. Sorry, I
Okay.
have to. There's like a smudge on my. I could see it. It's like the light.
Oh,
I think that's
that
better. Yeah, there was like a little like glare coming down
is it
on the
better?
screen. Yeah.
There's maybe I'm jaded because I've seen so much of the underworld that most people just never, even if we're talking about it and it's all over the news, they'll never
They
understand.
they only know the surface. They
Yeah,
will never
they'll
get the
never, they will
inside
have, when I
baseball.
talk about the underbelly and I talk about the, like, I know this world that is being exposed right now, and I'm here for it. I
Yeah.
I want the veil ripped off, and I want truth, to come out. When the whole Epstein, actually, when the Weinstein thing happened, I'll give you a little bit of background on that. Um, CAA, the whole Me Too thing came out, and CAA overnight had like millions of those fucking pink pussy hats.
Oh yeah, I remember
This
that.
is how like, this was organized. It was not grassroots, and it was organized by CAA, which is the biggest trafficking hub of models and actors and actresses in LA. So they got ahead of the Weinstein story. They even wrote something like, it's just, and it was so. That's why I'm always like, I'm not a joiner of things because they're generally hijacked, organized, and they don't go anywhere except for to cause your brain to go. You feel great because you did something behind a keyboard one day, but nothing ever fucking changes except for probably more rules are made, and that's not really the answer to.
It also sounds like they eat their own. If they're one of the biggest traffickers and they like were behind outing a trafficker or whatever he
Well, of
did, you know,
course,
it's like,
yeah, but
yeah, they eat their own. They'll
even again
sacrifice
with like
a lamb.
even like Puffy and the big, they all like, come on, they all know this is not.
Well,
um
even that video that I think Kara, what was her name? I don't know. They dated for a really Sierra something. They dated for a very long time, and she came out about how he was extremely abusive and like the this is a long time ago. The press on it was always like, oh, should we believe her? Should we not? Does she just want his money? And then when all those Diddy allegations come out, a video got released of him like beating her up in a hotel, like where the elevators are in a hotel, like waiting for the elevator waiting part. She's like trying to sneak out of his room, and then he like follows her to where the elevators are and like beats the crap out of her and like drags her back by her hair to the room. And it's like they released that, so it's like those like it's already proof that he's an abuser, you know, like
yeah,
it's
yeah, and then there's a book, I guess. I've been hearing some excerpt. I don't think it's real. If she was keeping notes to write a book, and then somebody took it and wrote this for her or whatever, it sounds, it's just too much. And I think freaky shit happened, but just the way the sound of it just doesn't
well,
sound like it's.
did you see some of the headlines? And I actually don't know if they're true, but I was dying laughing. There's like a headline that's like 884 dildos
Yeah,
confiscated from Diddy's house, and
and a
like a
thousand pounds of
crate,
lube.
like a crate of lube or something like.
And here's the thing too. There's reports of like, okay, 1,000, let's say, escorts that he used to cry. A lot of the, like, they did a job, and if that's your job, and then you're not who I'm talking to. Like, that's not, I don't give two fucks about that. It's the kids. And then, because I've been dosed. I've been dosed. I've had to fight for my life. I've had these things happen. And it's the trauma and recovering from something like that. And I wasn't dosed by like where I was getting paid for anything. I was dosed in college and with GHB. And those that's that's it's coercion, force, fraud, or coercion, I think is how they say it if it's been tried. And so just this whole mindset of how many fucking just dark motherfuckers there are, and it all this sacral chakra trauma that causes people to, because your sexual energy is everything. It's sacred. It's everything. And I wouldn't have known that as a I didn't know that. I didn't have that. I didn't have that support growing up to tell me that I was special, that
Well,
my
you didn't
body
have that
was special.
information though. Like there was no internet back then where like there's a lot of like internet forums and there's ways
Hmm.
to find this stuff out. Like and you see it in your algorithm, whatever, but like you look deeper into it, you find books, but it's like back in the day, it's like you didn't have that. And you also like didn't have a mom around and your stepmom
Hmm.
was, not
Hmm.
kind to you. And it's like you go,
Yeah.
and that's another thing that guys don't understand. It's accessible and it's easy. And there is one thing that I fucking hate him, Andrew Tate said, but I do agree, is that beauty is a type of currency for women.
Hmm.
And it's true, it
Hmm.
is a type of currency.
Yeah.
And sometimes if
Yeah.
you're coming from nothing or you're trying to get out of a really bad situation or it's like it's
Hmm.
almost easy to do that, which is why women get trapped. And then it's like,
Hmm.
but then you start losing pieces of yourself and
Yes.
it's
And
hard to get
I
out from under it. It's the money that you make is not really like anything else,
no,
and it's a
I
whole
could work.
cycle.
I could work maybe 3 times a month. I was having less sex than anybody that I knew, and it was all like it. But and I could justify in my mind like I can work for 3 hours a month and make 10 grand, like.
Yeah, I mean
And
literally.
when I had, and also having mental health issues of CPTSD, where I'm having flashbacks. So I'm very anxious avoidant personality at this time.
And
So
ADHD, that's like a lifelong thing as well. That's something
being
that
out in
never goes
public
away.
became very difficult. And
Mm.
then, so what I did was I, with acting school, and I just became very hermetic and studying the occult, studying acting. I studied psychology. Like I dug into why I was the way I was, which is why I do the work I do now. I never, it wasn't something that I dreamed of being as a little girl. It has been something that has been now plays out in my life and in helping other people move through trauma. But it's just not, I just believe there's this hijacking of the sacral chakra on this planet, and it's by design to get people in a traumatized state so that they can't make what I would call a true north decision. They can't align. I mean, when you don't know what emotional regulation is, and especially, I think it's really easy. Oh, she's crazy. She's crazy. Ugh, that drives me nuts. Okay.
I hate that.
Right?
Was she crazy or did she have intuition and she was right about you? Which one is it?
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. And also, I would flashbacks are just an interesting thing. I didn't even know what flashbacks were until I moved to Sedona, but I've been having them my whole life.
Mm.
And you do, so it makes it very difficult. I wouldn't know, like I would, you just kind of flip out. It, especially like when you're up against, it's called reactional abuse. So if I was cornered in a situation, or if I've had to fight for my life. And so when you have those feelings come up, and you can just be with some, like a friend or whatever, and they come up, but you don't talk about it because I wouldn't even know what was happening to me. Now I understand what a flashback is. Now I understand that. But when I look out at all these stories, and I just see the amount of trauma that this puts out to the world, and because it's through the music and stuff too. So this isn't just because it's happening in that house. This is happening all over.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's happening all over to the point where like I have a really dear friend and she doesn't live in Vegas, but she had a scary trafficking story and I think I told you a little bit about it. She didn't really know that it was happening at first and she was hired as like what is it called? Like a in like an atmospheric model, just to, like hang around, be beautiful at a
Hmm.
party and stuff. And before you know it, she was like the parties got a little bit smaller and she was getting paid to not do anything, and then like they invite her on a trip, everything's fine, she goes home, and then they invite her on another trip and then everything is not fine, and now she can't get away. It's in a scary country with walls that are like guarded and shit, and like now she is stuck here, and it's like I don't know, there's really, and like high end people too, like shit where they wanted to do golden handcuffs kind of things, like we'll get you this really really beautiful penthouse apartment, blah blah blah, that you can live in, and then like
Hmm.
meanwhile they're sending guys up there, and it's like
Hmm.
there's weird stuff like that, you know, and it's all for high end
That's how it
clients, like
started
high
for
end.
me. I flunked out of college. My parents were, we'll just stick with it, just was a discard.
Mm-hmm.
And I had, I mean, mental health, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to take care of myself at all. I had severe ADHD, CPTSD, starting back in, I mean, that's CPTSD generally as it starts in childhood. It's complex.
Right. Yeah.
And so I had a job. I was working for the city that I was in. I guess I can say it, city of Seattle.
Mm.
And I, it's the time when like Kurt Cobain, committed suicide during that time. So I was there during the grunge time, and it was, I mean,
Mm.
it was a fun going out, and I met a guy who the same thing. It was just hanging out, having fun. Want to go to Vegas, fly down there for the weekend, hang out, made money, but didn't get it because but you promised, and then that doesn't happen, and then started to ask, where's the money and this sort of thing, and that didn't happen, and then I was locked. He had keys to, like, I couldn't get away from him, and then when I finally did escape from him, he knocked me right between the eyes, and it's a whole nother story. But you know it would take me till I was 28, 29, moved to LA before I even started to even understand what had happened to me.
Right.
Like what is wrong with me that how did I get here? What is this, like, what is, I want to know. I wanted answers. And of course, I'm a 5-1 in human design, so I'm an investigator like a motherfucker. And psychology, I enjoy it. So that's when I really started to explore that I was a shattered personality, and started talking about it on stage, and doing what I do now. But I really am hoping that with this, with Cat Williams coming out first, and with this happening, that this really does give women a chance to speak and really be honest about be honest about their lives with it. More women will
Right.
come, you know.
Well, I have like a lot of anecdotal stories. I mean, even another friend of mine, you know, during pandemic when everything closed, she started doing OnlyFans and it barely got her by. Thank God she had like a few other things she was doing like here and there, but like she was started doing OnlyFans, and then she hated it because she had to like have all of her friends and people that know her in our little downtown music scene, artist scene community. Like now all these guys get to see all the goods for like $5 a month to like, I mean, how much is the most expensive premium OnlyFans? $10 a month or something? I
I
have
don't
no
know.
idea, but I don't know either. But I'm just saying, like, it was not that much because she couldn't get people to sign up if it was too much. So I think it ended up being like $10 a month or something. I'm like, so they're seeing like the whole kit and caboodle for $10 a month, like these dudes that you're gonna have to see
Yeah.
around downtown and stuff. Like, and the truth is most of the OnlyFans girls, it's like a vast majority, like 90
Yeah.
to 95% of them make not even $300 a month. So
Yeah.
you're
And here's
showing
the
all
thing.
the dudes
Most
you know,
dancers,
everything.
you go to clubs,
Ugh.
there's very few girls that make it to the level of, you know, it being
But you know, the thing
um
at the club is, which I will just like as a pro to girls who are like maybe even considering this, like the difference with OnlyFans is one, you are going to make more money at the club regardless. You're
yeah,
definitely going to make more than $300 a month at the club. Two, there is
yeah,
a level of privacy. I get it, it might be in your town, but really it's not going to be every single person you know that's coming to the club to watch dancers nude. You know what I mean? It's like there's a little bit more control, a little bit more privacy, but then I mean, I know that not just any old person can go to the club. You have to have that beauty. You have to have, like, you know, there are like
mhm,
raunchier ones or ones that aren't as good. But like, if you want to get a job at a good club, you do
mhm.
have to like have a level of decorum and like, you know, physical presence. So, but any old person can do OnlyFans online, I guess. Like,
Yeah, but here's the thing is that it's not really you know, I don't even want to say that. I was gonna say it's not that like the glorified part of it. Very few people have like, you know, it's just not that's not the reality. And
well,
even
yeah, it's not the reality. And also, I feel like more than anything, it kind of, because like my friend, she even told me like that's for life. She has a feeling like if people Google her, like if she tries to fill out a resume, like somehow those pictures are going to come up, you know, or they're going to know. She's like, it's the internet, it's forever basically. So
you
it's
know,
like it's definitely not worth it.
I am so grateful that my 20s, like when this was going on for me, there wasn't any of this shit. There is none of it. And even now, even now talking out, my dad died 2 years ago, and I I never wanted to hurt my father, and I know that this stems from father for me deep wounds, abandonment, father and mother, and in there's been aspects of me, there have been parts of me where I've wanted it was done out of I because I felt so abandoned and I didn't know how to survive, and so I really did. I had a deep hate for my father for a very long time, and now that he's gone, I can talk about it more openly because in LA, when I was performing and on stage, they were never going to see it. I was never going to be, I mean, it was expression, right? But as I got older and I start now doing the work with clients and I've never wanted to speak out and be gratuitous about any of it. That's not how I am. I do want to talk about how painful it is when oh she's got daddy issues or you know she's crazy or it's like okay then let's back that up a bit. Yeah, yeah, she does have deep abandonment issues and you still want to fuck with her and we
Yeah,
still
what does
so
that say about you as a person?
right, but how many of these this it's kind of a it's kind of a how people talk to each other right now is how I feel, and it lacks so much humanity, and I just see so much trauma, and I tend to want to go after the men more than I want to go after the women because the men are the one that are paying for this. The men are the ones that are this is a service
Yeah,
because
there's
we're
a demand. There's a demand because of them. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
and
Like that's why there's a
where do we think
constant
this,
demand.
where
And
do we think
boys, men
this,
and boys.
you're putting this energy that you're wanting to pay generally it's because I mean if you have a wife, you don't want to do those things with your wife. There's a lot of just, but you're putting that energy into these girls that you're calling broken, and then you're walking away and you're wondering why they stay broken.
Or
I've
like
never
even
met a
more
girl.
than that, not only why they stay broken, but then like you further break her. Like you
That's what I
further,
mean. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And then those are those girls over there. Well, that's all you guys' energy that's right there. And so because I walk with the archetypes, I see things archetypically. I see epigenetic trauma of the concubine and the king, and this is generation, this is a subconscious drive, and epigenetic trauma of why it, and I know that this is complex for me, so it really is complex, and I am sickened, and
Oh my
I'm
God.
sickened that, what's that?
Something fell. It scared the shit
Oh.
out of me.
And maybe sorry, this scared you. Maybe this will wake people up. Maybe I don't know. I don't ever want to get my hopes too up, but I think maybe it's because it's going to be such big theater that maybe people will talk about these things
Yeah,
more
it's yet
instead of it.
again just another thing, because the Epstein thing, as weird as that was, the news media never really went into this. So like pretty much everybody's heard of Jeffrey Epstein, but they don't understand like Epstein's Island. They don't understand how and why it was such a big deal, because it was like politicians and
Mhm.
like very uh like top celebrities and just all kinds of stuff. He had I mean, he was a CIA asset, but like they'll never, like in the mainstream, they never talk about why. They just talk about Jeffrey Epstein killed himself. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's like, it's just
Yeah.
like so silly almost. And
I
like
don't even
people
know
don't
if
even
this
know
one.
why. They don't even know why he was a big deal. A lot of people, they're just like,
Yeah.
oh, like what did he do? Or like, oh, he had a weird island, and it's like, it's more than that. But
Yeah, I think that we're election year, and then I've listened to some interviews have said that because of his alcohol, he split off with his alcohol company, um, and I guess there was some beef. I mean, I guess the alcohol's run by
pimps.
yeah, exactly, and so it's all pimp and hoes. It's all pimp and
Hmm.
hoes,
Yeah.
and I know that because I don't want to sound like a fuddy-duddy and like, oh, you don't have fun, kids. Don't be adults. It's like that's so not what I'm talking about. And I've never met a girl that was in that industry or and dancing, any of them, that wasn't sexually, physically, mentally abused. That doesn't mean that every girl that's had those things happen, ends up there. But there is something to this. I mean, why do we parade girls around for pageants? And why do we? It's like it's just kind of always the women, this at the service or pleasure of men. And I do get that we're attracted to each other. There's a dance there, but it's been so convoluted and perverted that, I mean, when I
Yeah,
see
it's
this
also
red
been
pill,
like degenerated in general. Like I feel like
yeah,
I do think that there are movers and shapers of society, and we've been in the process of demoralization,
yeah,
and this is part of that process. Think
yeah,
about chivalry, even old school chivalry of like with ladies, and like there was a reason. Like, I mean, chivalry is dead, but also like it had its perks as a woman in
yeah,
the age of chivalry and
yeah,
stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like because they understood that females were not as strong and needed protection, so they got a protected place in society. It's basically like simple as that. Even opening doors and just all of that. And you can even go back as near as the 50s, and just even the way people dressed back then, and with like a level of respect for themselves. You know what I mean? Looking well put together. Even the men, like
yeah.
men's like trousers and shirts and little vests in the 50s and stuff, like great. Mwah. And then if you just look at how everything has become so casual.
Well, you can
So
see the social engineering.
yeah, I mean that's part of it. Yeah, so it's like this whole weird culture with little girls being inducted and watching this culture and on TikTok. And like my sister has a friend that we've known for a long time, and her daughter is like 8 or 9, and she has like her own TikTok where she does like dances and stuff. And like And even in some of them, it's like she's like wearing like little shorts, little spandex shorts and like a shirt. It's like she should not be on the internet. It's so sad to me. And I'm like, but the fact that her mom even lets her have a TikTok, I'm like, oh, like it just is like makes me feel icky. You
Well,
know what I
and
mean?
that's what I mean by this. I mean, I just can't. It's that people can be so oblivious in this day and age and not think like I'm basically letting them or wear like little shorts that say juicy or like it's like you're just setting. I don't know, and
Yeah,
that.
like the pink, the Victoria's Secret pink on the
Mhm,
butt, or even anything.
mhm.
Like I have friends too where I see their daughters and like they're not. Some of them I have seen in like weird crop tops or weird little high heels that aren't like those little clicky clacky plastic heels. They're like little shoes with heels for girls, and I'm just like, God, she's 10. I'm like, oh my God, like she's growing. Like, I don't know. Let her be a little kid. Let her wear dorky little
Well,
like
and here
cartoons on her shirt, and I don't
it's
know,
sick
like.
that like that we have to really admit that predators are everywhere and that men by nature are predatorial.
They are predatory.
And these are some deep we could have some deep discussions about this
I
because
know.
I will tell you that the things I have seen and I I want a divine union. I claim a divine union and I know they're out there, so I don't think all men are like this, but men are predatorial by nature. And if they have not gone in to do the inner work and with this wanting a harem, wanting to if they can't really they haven't done that work, boy, especially with what they have access out to. I just think that we're tapping into some psyches that we haven't even begun to see the amount of predatorial behavior with psychopathics and sociopaths
Yeah, even this thing with Diddy,
and the
it's still just a
incels.
surface. It's still just surface. People are just barely getting a peer at the surface of the water when it comes to this shit and Diddy being
Yeah,
exposed or sent to jail or whatever's going to happen. Who even knows?
yeah,
But it's like it's still just a surface. How deep do you want to go? You know,
yeah.
like do you want to go psyop deep? Do you like how deep do you want to go? How deep do you want to go of like weird like how predators always pick like places where they have access to children, whether it's schools or libraries or being a priest or whatever. You know what I mean? Whatever gives them unfettered access to children, like those are a lot of the times these types of people go. You know, so it's like there's the
Well,
whole
even
like
in
trans thing,
homes,
like where it's like I want to talk to the kids about trans stuff, and it's like
yeah,
why? Like that's sexuality. You're talking about weird things of a sexual nature that kids don't need to know about yet. They just don't. You know, like that's
and
not to
there's
say that you can't inform them on anatomy and whatever, like how mom and dad how they get pregnant. Like that's one thing you can be scientific and not weird about it, but then it's another thing to start giving concepts to children that they can't even understand.
yeah,
Like it's just all so gross, and it is happening to the kids. That's where I don't understand how people like that still don't see it. I'm like, dude, they're teaching our kids all kinds of fucking just
right?
sexual stuff
They are
like in
basically
nature.
getting ready to serve it, like just put them right out into the world and just serve them right up. And
It
I
makes me
feel
feel
like,
sick, honestly. Like it makes me feel glad I don't have kids.
yeah, but it's like I can see, like I see it so clearly because it's I get it. I mean, I do see it, but trying to explain it to people, I mean, and I've had interviews. I work with women that are boots on the ground, getting women off the street and out of pimp situations off the street. And, trying to even having shows and interviewing people and trying to get the word out there. It's like, it's people claim they want to care and they care during during the Super Bowl and they care when like a movie like Sounds of Freedom comes out and they care for a minute. But when it comes down to really addressing it and really like why don't we have a movement behind that and like behind the movements that we have that like you just can't seem to get people really on board with this one. And I will tell you what I think it is. I think it comes up against their subconscious and their secrets that they keep for their own bloodline, because they know that it's in all of our family lines. It may not be in the specific home, but it's in everybody's family. Everybody has something that is that goes back to this kind of trauma epigenetically, because it's the same archetypical story for everyone. And I'm convinced that there's a reason why things are in the mainstream, is because that's the archetypes that are coming out to play. And this is a big one. This is a big one, because what always does well in poor economic times? Sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And if they can get you in the sacral chakra and get you stuck and addicted, you'll never live your truly sacred sexual life.
Yeah. It's also just about degeneration and like demoralization of the family, breaking down the family. I mean, when you break down the family structure on a societal level, like people are way easier to control. They know that these are
Yeah.
like psychological tactics that they are instilling for multiple purposes, mainly for demoralization. So we're easy to control. We're alone. They have control of our mind. The family unit is disrupted. So instead of looking to your family, you look outward to the government, to authorities beyond your own, beyond your family, so there's a lot of reasons why this is happening. And it's also a very large mass MK Ultra.
Yeah.
It is about control.
Yeah.
When you are so fractioned, when you are so as a society, when there's so much trauma coursing through every household, like, you are easily controlled by the government. That is just the way it goes, and they're like fractioning off people. It's very weird. It's very sad. They're making a lot of broken people. They're making people that don't want to procreate. They're making people that don't want to have babies. You know what I mean? Because that's what
Yeah.
happens during this type of
It's
societal
exactly,
collapse,
yeah. And that's trauma. Traumatize the planet. And that's the emotional center, the sacral chakra, sexual energy. You get that all confused, and you get them as a kid. And, and I would even argue that people that present like their lives are all super groovy. And I don't, I just don't know that we have a very good, like learned about sex, and it was like on the health class. That was
hmm
about as intense as my awareness of my body was. So think about the generations before that. They weren't, they were getting even less. And so
yeah,
I
they were
am
getting
that,
they were getting way less than that.
yeah. And so, or even like you have to go to your like a relative's house, but you don't know why you don't want to hug from them. Oh, give them a hug. Like, go hug your relative. So it's probably a shitty example, but just
No, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. Like if a kid's intuition is, I also understand not being rude, like say hi to them or whatever. But yeah, if a kid really feels they don't want to touch someone, I think it's weird to make them do that. Um,
well,
there's
even
a
like,
there and there is a point where like I get it, like kids don't have like the full autonomy in a weird way because you're responsible for them. They still require your care, meaning if you don't care for your child, they will suffer neglect. They won't eat, they won't brush their teeth, they won't shower, they won't have clean clothes. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So they're so dependent on you. But like you should teach your kids about boundaries. You should have you should have discussions with your children about family members, about their own body, what is acceptable touch. Like if you're staying there at grandma and she has to help you clean yourself or something, that's one thing. That's but you have to like break it down for kids, and there's a way to kind of drill it into their head. Sure, you gloss over it one time, they're probably not going to understand, but if you kind of bring up these discussions and like plant little seeds over and over, they will understand. If you let them know, hey, like, I'm safe. If anybody ever does anything to you, you come to me and you tell me immediately. You tell them. It doesn't matter if they threaten you, if they tell you that they're going to hurt me. It doesn't matter. Like, you have to tell kids and prepare them and arm them for things that a predator would say to a child. So it's like and actually to the point where like I remember my mom having discussions like that with me about my boundaries, about what is acceptable. If anybody ever touches me or my brother, we're supposed to tell her. Like, I remember her telling me this stuff, because she kind of said it over and over, like, especially when I was like 8, 9 years old. Like, I remember it, so I
Yeah,
don't think it's weird. I think it's preparing your children for it's a safety at this point, like a survival, you know?
yeah, and I don't know if it's because I grew up in the country and it was just so sheltered in a small town that these weren't conversations that were even like something they would have thought that we should have had, as far as like um,
Maybe I grew up in Southern
with
California in the city,
with
so
strangers, or I think it's just there was just no communication in my house. There
right.
just wasn't. I didn't have.
Yeah, they ignored it. But see, the thing with back in the day, especially, which I feel like I will give credit to newer parents with like discussing
Yeah.
some type of like body boundaries. But back in the day, like there's a lot of shame around the
Mhm.
body, and especially the female body. There always has been, which is why in African cultures they practice, sexual mutilation. They will cut off the little girl's clitoris. Literally, they will cut it off, because even then she's tempting men. It's just like so fucking stupid, and disgusting. And like
Well,
there's
that's
always
how.
been this shame with
Yeah.
women. So yeah, you can't discuss
Yeah.
bodies. And there's like it's also a taboo. Shit that we're talking about right now. This is like taboo. It makes people uncomfortable. And it's like
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry that you're uncomfortable. Like these are things of life that like you should be doing. And if it makes you uncomfortable, you should look at why, because there might even be a reason.
Yeah.
And also like you need to work through that for the health of your children, for the health of yourself, like
Yeah.
normalize things with them, let them know that you're safe to come to, like there's
And
things
that
you
there's
can
a
do.
like there be a good girl and don't even like it keeps you from. I don't like that. Good
No,
girl,
that's
bad
weird.
girl, in the
Yeah.
Madonna horror comp. This is how these things, and this is for me. I mean, I even though I didn't grow up in a house that had church, I certainly can see where the fallout. They still acted like because they got shame and guilt from growing up and how they and there was church involved. So we're not gonna have church in my house, but you still had the fallout from their beliefs of it, because I
Yeah.
mean you're being called, or at least I was, names that I wouldn't even know what I didn't know what I I didn't. Why was my sexuality such a threat to those around me? And I have no understanding of what's happening. And I'm not alone in this as a woman looking back on childhood, especially not in Gen X.
Mm-mm.
I mean, there's a reason why us Gen Xers are the way we are. I mean, we were latchkey kids. We were just really on our own and pretty emotionally neglected.
Ignored. Yeah, neglected,
Hmm.
ignored. Yeah,
Yeah,
I agree.
yeah. And
Which is
that's
weird
I
because like those parents were coming out of the hippie free love movement, but then that might be why, because like their generation overdid it, so now they don't want their kids. You know what I mean? It's like
I think that my mom was the hippie, and she didn't raise me, but my stepmom and dad were those damn hippies. They went through.
mm-hmm.
So I love the hippie part of me. I love my mom, but I born in the summer of '69.
Love it.
you know, but yeah, I mean, I just think that this whole. I hope that it seems. I hope it opens up the dialogue. I know that there are a lot of people that are a lot of these stations where people just they can't believe it, and I'm just like, okay, wow. It just confirmed to me, because I sometimes it's like I have to remember, like I do have kind of a different insight into it, and but I just hope that this is kind of the that'll blow it open a little wider.
Yeah. Or
But
yeah,
I
at
don't.
least another chink in the armor, at least.
Yeah, I don't know that he'll survive. I don't. I think this is a pretty good. I think it's a pretty good, like, you're done. Can you imagine going from being literally like I was there. I mean, Biggie, I suppose, was bigger, but and Tupac, and so, but being up there, and I mean his whole history, and then you're in jail and you are eating what all the other inmates are eating, and you
Yeah,
are.
like my, how the king has fallen. You know what I mean? Like
can you even imagine the psychological? I mean, I've tried to like imagine the psychological mind fuck that would be. I've seen
I mean,
like
at some in some part of like that level of criminality and like evil doing to the point where you're like literally physically harming people and like sexually abusing people, possibly, allegedly. There has to be a part of you that knows that like you
oh,
could
I
get
would
caught one day, you know?
to imagine. I mean, because I can only assume that he truly above the law. Like he would have never thought that he was. And can you
Yeah.
imagine? But if you look at like his pictures from like recently, I don't know, it looks like his eyes got smaller. Like did he have eye
I
surgery or
saw that.
something? He looks he looks retarded almost, but like like truly he looks like they
Well, he
say
does
that you're
always be
in.
wearing he does always be wearing them stupid glasses though, those little glasses. He loves those things.
Well, they
Maybe
say
that's
that
why.
like if your eyes are close together, you're more likely inbred. And when I see him, I'm like, he kind of he kind of fits the anyway. But he just looks awful. I mean, he looks like he's sick. He just looked. You can tell when somebody's in good health and they're glowing, they're taking care of themselves, and then you can tell when somebody's like,
You know, it's also
okay,
just like I don't know, he's like this has been like especially him in particular, like the rumors have been around for a very long time that he has like the freaky shit going on. You know, so like it was kind of like an unspoken secret. Like everybody in Hollywood knew it because like if you're like an A-lister, you're probably going to catch the invite at some point in time. You know what I mean? Like or you're going to have to turn down the invite at some point in time, you know? So it's
mhm.
like he had to have known, but also like maybe I don't know, he'll probably be like a king in there to be honest. Like,
Well, that's what's been kind of fascinating watching all these. There's so many stations right now that are covering it on YouTube, and
mhm.
you click one and then 10 come up. And so I'm finding all these new people on the internet trying to get, and I'm getting all sorts of different points of view. And the Jaguar Right woman definitely, she's throwing down some. I mean, when I tell you that she's got some tea, it's like, and I could give a shit now about all these names, but these are names that I did listen to. Like I was, you know, these are musicians and well rappers, but they deserve to be. I mean, like she was talking about Faith Williams and talking about like some of the shit these people have done is I don't know. I don't think I could I know I couldn't keep my mouth shut if somebody that I knew was fucking with kids or giving people drugs like this and just let them do it in the name of making uh,
A buck.
a buck. I couldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. But then,
No.
I mean, well, but then you get at that level, afraid for your life. So you stay in. So is this why even a lot of famous people that know what's going on because they don't have the courage because it's like well, they'll kill me. I mean, I get the witch wound. I get the whole thing of. I had people follow me in LA when I was doing stuff on Scientology. I get. I was just telling Sarah before the show, like I'm glad I'm alive. You know, I took some pretty big risks by speaking out the way that I did when I was just in LA. And I do know that, like, I'm very grateful that I'm alive. So I can't imagine. I think it takes a lot of strength. And so I suppose when there's more money involved um, but this woman was talking about, the setup with Biggie. And so basically the roosters are coming home to rest. Like everybody thought they were getting away with it. I think Bieber had a lot to do with it too. I don't think that, I think behind the scenes, he's part of the reason it's coming down.
Well, I'm pretty sure like he's been part of some sort of weird disclosure movement for a while. There was all this talk when he made this one song and music video. I can't remember what it was called. Maybe like
When he
Baby or
left to go to
something like that.
Hillside.
is like called Baby, and there's like, I don't know, there's like weird references in there, and I don't know, like I do hope it just like exposes it a little bit more, but like the thing that bothers me is what a lot of people don't understand is this shit has been going on since literally like Hollywood's inception. Like you look at Shirley
Forever.
Temple's story. I mean, Shirley Temple was in the 1930s or 40s or some shit like that. Like since then,
Bob
this has been
Hope
going on.
was a creeper. All
Yeah,
these
I mean, just
guys
all
that
of them, Weinstein. Then there's like been rumors of people in the past, and you know, there's like even Rose McGowan when she came out, and she had a lot to say about it, and she kind of exposed a little too much to the point where now she's like blacklisted from Hollywood. You know,
yeah.
so it's like um, there has been even like the ones we know about like Roman Polanski and what
Mhm.
is it, Woody Allen, how he married
Mhm.
his like stepdaughter that he raised from the time she was a little girl, and like Mia Farrow, that whole fucking story. Like it's been pervasive in Hollywood for a very long time, and it's like if
Mhm.
you don't know about it by now, like I'm sorry, you're stupid. And like you've really just been plugging your ears because you don't want to think about it and you don't want to hear about it and you
Yeah.
don't fucking care.
But
You
this
know,
is
like
the
even with
power they don't
The
even.
Corey Feldman, like all of it. How
Yeah.
long has disclosure been going on, dude? Like,
Yeah. And people don't realize, I mean, oh yeah, it's so much fun. We're watching the Disney kids together and they're programming your kids. And so it can seem very like, oh, wouldn't happen to my kid. I guarantee you they don't need a military base and a secret program to mind control you anymore. I mean, and I would even
mm-mm.
argue, and this is kind of well, this is a little bit of a side note, but the DOJ released the assassination, the shooter, they released his $150,000 reward
Oh, I
to.
saw that. I
So,
saw
so this
that.
is the phone. They showed us with the first assassination attempt that the phone left by him, they can activate by the phone. So if
Oh
your
yeah.
kids have been watching something where they program subconsciously and your kid has a phone and all of a sudden now everybody that has that app gets the trigger and now we have how many sleeper cells, how many activated people that can go and this is a like it's not as crazy as I'm saying it. It was like, God, that sounds crazy. It's just not that crazy. They're telling you what they're doing, the ubiquitous they are telling you that we have an entire, I mean, how mentally ill and how many people are now like
I
let's say that
mean,
everybody that watched this show at this time or what and now we've got them and we can turn on that particular frequency and now they all turn
I
like
don't even think at this point it has to even be that involved. Like that's just like speculation if they have that kind of technology. But at this point, it's like they don't even need it. How many fucking school shooters and mall shooters and have there been over the last 20 years? You know, like there are people that are going insane in general just because they're
Mhm.
so out of touch with reality. They feel so alone, so isolated. They're addicted to porn. You know, like they're incels or like maybe they're like, I don't know, they feel like a victimized somehow or like kind of how the leftists and like all these people who aren't even victims just like want to be fucking victims, you know what I mean? And it's like they don't even need to do that. I don't think they just have to wait for somebody to crack, you know what I mean? And it's like
well, I guess maybe that's what I'm saying is that we have an epidemic of people ready to crack. It's
yeah,
not going to take it.
and then you see the media saying, "Oh, he's literally the next Hitler. He is Hitler. He's a fascist." And there are people who just grew up only reading about World War II from the Nazis and never about like the other forms of totalitarianism that took place. You know, they just think there's this one form of bad government and that they're bad, and it's just like I don't know that now they really if you get the messaging that he is literally the next Hitler and he's literally going to enslave people and murder people, like you're gonna think you're doing something good. They just created a fucking patsy. There's been two of them so far. Like,
I think there
come
was another
on.
attempt I think there's been
Something at one of his rallies, there was like a barrel
some
or something weird
yeah
where people were reporting like all these weird symptoms or something. It's
they like
Havana syndrome or some shit.
50
Yeah.
people had
hmm
burns on their skin and
Which to me sounds like radiation. I mean, I don't think they would
Mhm,
tell us, even if it was. I really don't think they
mhm,
would tell us, but it sounds like,
mhm.
I mean, you can. if you have radioactive, like nuclear material, and you're sitting close to it, you can literally get damage, you know? So it can make you very sick. You have to go on like the radiation pills, like iodine or whatever. Like it's
God.
bad.
And off on another tangent, bombing in Lebanon, didn't see any of it. Now, in my Twitter, there's action. I think I was telling you this today. It's Facebook is more like a geriatric home, but Twitter will say something about, or X,
He looked like he wanted to get up,
but not anywhere else, just crickets. And so then I wonder, like,
I've seen some of it on Instagram. I'm not really on Facebook anymore, but I would doubt it would be. Facebook isn't really the platform for that anymore, for like
no,
sharing.
it's where I keep business and friends. It's not really. I do some uh, political stuff, but X is more where I'm sharing
I
and
mean,
getting more
I
involved
think,
in
you
it.
know, pretty much everybody knows I'm no longer on Facebook. There was like a time a few years ago when like I low-key almost got canceled because I was just shit posting, you know? And I live in like a little community in Vegas, downtown Vegas, and it's just like it's kind of where all the artists are, and like local musicians and people who come to shows, and you know what I mean? Just like it's a very close-knit community. It's a big little town for that area. And
Mm-hmm.
even for other areas, like if you're a clubber, if you're a club head and you like going dancing on the strip, like that's a small community as well. You know what I mean? So it's like
Mm-hmm.
I just have all these people who are kind of like leftists, and I know them, they're acquaintances, or some of them I would consider friends, but most of them acquaintances. And I would post something that they don't agree with, and then they would all just hijack my thread, and like before you know it, there's like 15 people commenting basically about how stupid and wrong I am and blah blah blah. And it's just like a tactic that they use. So I don't use that tool anymore. Now I just post to my stories, because if you have something to say to me, you have to actually reach out to me personally, and they won't do that. So I've done like little tests on it too. Like they will not personally message me and have a discussion like an adult. They will only comment on my thread in hopes of their friends tag teaming in the comments and like ganging up on me. So I don't use Facebook anymore.
Well, you know, back when I was doing Overground Railroad, I was very much that, and uh, now my Facebook, pretty much everybody agrees with me for the most part. So I don't. It's not a place where I'm. It's like an echo chamber. I don't really have anybody.
Right.
Everybody's pretty much.
Like-minded. That's good. I mean, I
Yeah.
kind of wanted to get there, but then I'm like, I'm also the kind of person where I'm like, I'm not going to delete them. I'm not that petty. Like, I'm not going to delete them because they disagreed with me on my post, even if they were blatantly rude and like
Yeah, I don't.
aggressive.
I have a couple pretty good trolls, and I found out I got something from the fighting time with a guy pretending to be a girl, or with the trans stuff
Oh
with that
gosh.
fighter. I got it. I mean, I don't know what it is, but it says your page has a restriction. I was like, oh, well,
Oh,
just
you got a
simply
strike?
no. I don't know what it is, but
Yeah, it's like a strike basically. You got
yeah.
like a
So
slap on the wrist for
yeah. So what the
misinformation
fuck?
or
I
something.
I don't care. I really don't care. Um, I yeah. I really don't care. Um, but it just, between the algorithms, and there used to be a time where I really, for business, I felt like it was important to be building and posting, and now it's on to other collaborations, and I'll still do some stuff, but I don't I don't feel like it's I don't know, maybe there was a time when I felt like I was really doing something by having, and I
Yeah,
guess it makes
like it was an outreach or something, you
yeah,
know.
and it makes me feel better, so I'll do it. And I'll still do some stuff, but I feel better about doing a show like this and getting it off my chest, and you know, who knows who might see it, rather than thinking that I'm going to. And it's even more like when I do post something that's about the election or politics, or there's something, it gets maybe one or two or three. Then I post something stupid and silly, you get 100. It's like, okay,
Hmm.
they they're not letting me post the shit. They're not letting me have any reach.
It's clearly biased. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
down voting in the algorithm, the political view that they don't endorse or whatever, because you know that they don't endorse that. But guaranteed, if it was like pro Kamala or pro that side, that shit would get pushed all around in your algorithm. You know what I mean? So it is very one sided. It's almost like not worth it. But I'm usually
Yeah.
not the one, like I usually don't go up to people and discuss this shit. They want to bring it to me, and then they
Yeah.
get mad when I feel differently. And I'm just like, well, don't ask me my opinion, because I'm going to tell you and then I'm going to crush you with facts. And then you're going to either get mad at me and call me names, or you're just going to like hit the wall and turn around and like not be my friend anymore. Like I've had that shit happen, which to me is so
Hmm.
weird, because up until this certain time where like society kind of broke, you've always been allowed to have different opinions than your
Yeah.
friends, like always, for as long as I can remember. It was
Mhm.
never an issue, and now it's a big fucking issue if you disagree on a few topics. Even,
Mhm.
it's like all of a sudden you're um enemy number one and persona non grata, basically, or
Mhm.
you have a scarlet letter because, oh, you committed a thought crime,
Mhm.
like, so
Yeah, the
um
divide and conquer has just gotten into every crevice, it would seem. I mean,
and I will gladly wear that scarlet letter.
yeah, I was thinking back, like back when I was growing up, we were all watching In Living Color together. My black friends called me cracker. Like it wasn't like,
Hmm.
it wasn't. I got an N word pass before. Like it wasn't like, it was. We joked about it. It wasn't anything. I don't know. They were your friend. We were friends. It wasn't like it was some big deal. I
Yeah, we
remember
were all
that.
still just people. We were all still just
Yeah,
humans instead of like
getting
classes
fucking
and
blazed and
categories.
watching In Living Color. Are you kidding me? And then the amount of fucking get so stoned and you just laugh your ass off. And I mean, it was really, it was, it's very
That
odd.
it was almost like the best times for race relations, I feel like, in
Mhm,
America at some point. And then I think they saw that it was going too good,
mhm,
so they had to like cause division, because it's divide and conquer. That's the
mhm,
part that kills me, is I'm like, I wish these people that feel so like underclassed and underprivileged and like they're just big victims. I wish they would see that like it actually suits our masters for
mhm.
them to believe that way, because when people come together, like they can't control us anymore. But if we're all divided, fighting at each other, we're like easy fucking targets, like, because normally I could fight this side and you can fight this way, and then we could like fight all sides,
Mhm,
looking around us. But now it's like we're easy targets for governments, for authoritarianism, for
mhm.
totalitarianism, for demoralization,
Yeah,
degeneration, for get like being locked up in jail as far as the Black community goes. So
mhm.
there was a time when the Black community did not commit a very large majority of crimes, kind of like before they started, like the Black community did well. If you talk to certain people,
Yeah,
when they had their own communities and they had their own schools and their own doctors and their own teachers, because they had a whole parallel fucking economy that
yeah.
they all supported one another, and everybody had a job, and they still needed plumbers and roofers and
It's
nurses and
it's
dentists and doctors and teachers, and you know what I mean, bus
yeah,
drivers.
it's
And
human nature to want to be around your own kind. And if you look at a school, I mean, kids will segregate themselves because they want like you want to be around like. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong. And yeah, these are
yeah, I mean, they're hard topics to talk about. That's what like Brett Weinstein got canceled for, basically, was saying how in I think it was something along the lines of uh it was actually biological sometimes having like a racial out group,
Mhm.
only because within your own community, you guys all kind of had like uh, the perfect instance is we came over from America and gave Native Americans smallpox. They never had smallpox before. It wasn't part of their community. That wasn't a disease that they got and spread to each other. I'm sure they had other colds and flus or whatever,
Mhm.
certain things that affected them. But so it's even like biological to the point where you're in group, because like if you're Irish, and then if you're Spanish, you know what I mean? Like you naturally segregate. That's why we have
Yeah.
all these different languages, because it's in group preference, and then your own little community, you guys have the same kind of hive immunity as far as like immunological disease and just like illnesses, even not even a disease, just certain illnesses, you know? So it's very strange that you can't even speak the truth and why there might have been a reason. And then likewise, though, the part that I don't understand why he got canceled is because right after he says this stuff, he turned around and said that, but since modern medicine, since we have all this modern science and, you know, vaccinations and washing hands, you don't really need to be afraid anymore. And so because you have consciousness, you can override those biological, like, knee-jerk reactions of like being with your kind. You can kind of be like, no, like, we all have like now been introduced in society together. There's been a level of, you know, permeation on all ends, and we all can get measles vaccine, mumps vaccine. You know, you don't really need to worry about that anymore. And so I don't know, he still got canceled for saying that. It's weird. I don't understand it. I mean, you look at colleges and they do want to have their own graduation ceremonies. There's like been things where, you know, the Black community in certain colleges, they want to have their own, you know, college ceremonies. And it's like, because they're self-segregating though. So
Yeah, and that's why yeah, I mean, it just seems like duh to me. Like it's like it doesn't seem like it's some big controversial thing to say, but for a lot of people, it most certainly is. And again, we go back down to the divide and conquer. It's just it's permeated everything. Everything.
yeah, it doesn't have to be this way either. That's the sad thing to me, is I wish people would understand that.
I don't think it is really naturally. It is that way. It's all by design, and and you're seeing how fragile and how easily programmable people are. And now it's, you know, I mean, growing up, we didn't even really have a TV, all that. It was a little anyway, but now it's 24/7 access to everything. And you'd think that, you know, well,
Everything all the time, basically, too. It's like
everything
everything,
all the time.
everything all the time, like
Yeah.
24/7 at your fingertips. And
Well, now I hope that there's like, you know, Pink deleted her X or Twitter or whatever. Usher did too.
oh,
People
I
are
saw
starting
Usher
to
did.
delete stuff. So I'm hoping that it gets a little bit I think that there are a lot of truths that are coming out right now for a lot of people, and for a lot of people I think you might have mentioned it on one of the shows where people are going to secretly be voting.
Oh
I
yeah,
think
they are.
I think people are I do think that it's more um well, maybe it's because I need to believe in this and we're so close to the election that things are being exposed, and that because, you know, before when Hillary won, it was the WikiLeaks stuff that really contributed to last minute stuff that changed that
Oh
election.
yeah.
hmm
Mhm. I
So
remember that.
I'm hoping that, you know, that there's some tricks up the sleeve that kind of uh,
I
open people's
also I
minds.
also read something that like the like inflation has kind of gone up again, and so like especially near the holiday season, people are going to feel another crunch, and like that's never good for like the person who's like the incumbent, basically, like since she's part of the incumbent administration, you know what I mean? Like it never looks good on them when like right before they get in office, like shit is more expensive and people are struggling more, and now they have to think about Christmas and Thanksgiving and, you know, the
Mhm.
holidays. And it's like, yeah, that might put a little pep in people's step too, you know, that pinch on their wallet, that final squeeze, you
Mhm.
know. So I do have hope. I do think there is like a secret voter, and it's the people that don't talk about it. If you have a friend who maybe in the past used to be like very loud or post a lot of their preferences or whatever, and they're not doing that this time, might be because they're scared to tell you who th're voting for. Like,
Yeah, it should be very, very interesting. And I know that the ramping up of the war is, and that's another, anyway, I kind of already talked about the Lebanon stuff, but that
yeah.
was, and didn't see anything on one feed and then on another, on that, you know, X, it's going off
Yeah,
everywhere.
they're keeping the lid tight on that narrative right there.
They sure are. They sure are.
And that's another thing. You only know kind of what I mean, unless you're like a really good at doing digging and, you know, reading independent news and journalism. If not, then like you're just going to believe whatever the TV tells you. You're not going to have a grasp on reality and the narrative, you know? So
That's so true. I mean, another time, I mean, that if this was happening, you'd have 3 stations and everybody would be right there gathering it. Now it doesn't even come into your world if you're still just watching the three networks or barely anything. And I think a lot of people are very much into their Fox and CNN, even though I can't understand it, but they still exist. And I saw that Trump, he turned down, I guess they wanted another debate. He turned it down. So
I saw that.
yeah.
I mean, I would prefer for him to debate, but I mean, I kind of get why he doesn't. I think that for whatever reason, she probably really knows how to press his buttons and get under his skin and get him mad. And for Trump, that's kind of like not good for him to get mad because he gets like flustered and he starts like saying stupid shit. He doesn't stay online. You know what I mean? It's like his ego thing. If you hit his ego, which she clearly knows how to do.
Well, and I do think she had those earrings. I think she, you know.
Oh yeah, I saw that. I mean, they looked very similar. Shit,
yeah.
Like a little too similar. But even if she didn't, even if she had already known, you know, it's still like she still was able to get under there to the point where like it threw him off of like, I think really hitting it home with like what Americans want to hear, you know, like derailed him kind of. And so it's not in his favor to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
I would respect it though. I would still like to see it, but
yeah.
It is weird. I am scared if she gets in, you know, she's just like another empty vessel puppet. I mean, not that Biden was much better. He was literally just like an empty puppet, literally. Like you look at all of his press conferences and it's all you could tell he's just like squinting and like reading off of a teleprompter word. Oh, stop, repeat the line. You know what I mean? It's like so like.
Yeah, they showed one today where he literally forgot, like, he's like, who's next or something. He doesn't even, like, he just has no idea.
I saw that, like, he was, like, there for, like, some foreign leader, like, he was supposed to probably be like, and now here's President so-and-so from this country, you know, but, like,
who's that? Yeah,
who's next? What am I doing? Somebody get me off this fucking stage, like.
I just think it also goes to show you that, first off, nobody is qualified for this kind of power, like, and because there's nobody even running the country now. So what's the difference if he's there? Like
there's no man at the helm of the ship. There's nobody that's steering.
Yeah.
It's a group of people.
And always
like
has
in a
been.
circle around the wheel. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
but that's kind of the thing with Trump, though. That's why they don't want him, because I really do feel like he tries to take the wheel and he's like, no, we're not going to do it that way. We're going to do it this way because that makes more sense for America. And they can't have that. They need their globalist puppet who's going to advance their agenda, this new world order agenda. They need the person that's going to let them take the wheel, a whole multi-conglomerate of corporate fucking entities that are going to be taking turns steering the ship. And it's never going to be the one man that can actually be held accountable. You know what I mean? Or who actually has it's in his best interest for America to do good. Because when the middle class is good, his businesses do good. You know, like when you have people where the economy and all that, when it's not dependent on them, when they don't care, it's not going to touch them or their loved ones. It's like, of course they don't care. It doesn't affect them. You know, we need someone who is affected by American policy. So we also need somebody who's going to stand up and say no sometimes, like, no, who's the wild card, you know, who's like, I'm actually going to go into this country you don't want me to, because that is, and then they're like, oh, he met with dictators. Like, that is literally diplomacy. That is what that's called. Look it up in the fucking dictionary. Get a dictionary, please. Like, look up diplomacy, being a diplomat, being able to talk to people that are your perceived enemy, you know, and sit down and stick up for your country's interests instead of ignoring them and pissing them off. Like,
yeah, I'm good with a strong narcissistic man in office, especially because of the climate of just the world. Like if other world leaders didn't need, but look at this, look at who they are. Like
I'll
I
take the
don't.
bull in the china shop over the puppet,
Yeah,
basically.
that's what I was gonna say. I'd rather have the dickhead bull in the china shop hurt your feelings every once in a while over someone that literally shits his pants and can't put two sentences together.
Yeah.
Like, and the fact that, well, we're already getting into an hour and a half, and I could go off on how irritating it is that people just will make
Excuses.
yeah.
And they know that the party is in control and not the man, and like they want that, and I want the opposite. I want an individual to be responsible for that position, because that is how you keep the powers in check and divided, when it's not to like a shadowy group of people and interests and corporate interests and military interests. Like I don't want that. I don't want to be beholden to that. I want somebody who cares about America to be driving the fucking ship and be our captain. I don't want the shadowy forces that are pulling the strings. I'd rather have the bull in the china shop that's going to come in and break some toys than the fucking person that's on marionette strings being pulled this way and that way,
For sure.
So
or
that
even
makes me a fascist. Then, oh well.
you're a fascist.
Oh, fascist. These words mean nothing anymore. They're just so
I was just
hollow
gonna
and
say these
empty.
words, they just doesn't mean anything.
It means nothing. It's embarrassing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I came back from Arizona. I did not see Kim. I wish I did, but I went to Phoenix, and it was lovely. And I got back today. I'm a little tired, by the way.
Yeah.
But we needed to get this show out there. So
Yeah, just needed to yeah. It's been
discuss some of the current affairs so we don't miss it completely.
yeah, and just wanting to talk about it's still very complex, and I'm still unfolding it as I grow and reflect. Um, but it will always be something that's very important to me for as far as the trauma aspect of and for women. I mean, I don't
And
want to see.
isn't that why it's a healing journey? Because it's like you
Yeah,
don't just heal overnight. Like that'd be
yeah,
nice, but you're on
yeah,
the journey, Kim.
yeah. On the journey.
You're on the
Well,
journey.
I love you, and it's
I
so
love you
nice to see
too.
you. And uh,
Oh, did you
next
see
week
that
we'll
Diddy
see.
got put on suicide watch? He got put on suicide watch.
Oh, I did.
Mm-hmm.
I saw. I saw something about the food that he's getting served, and I mean they're breaking it down. I think it was Nancy Grace. I think she's probably covering him 24/7.
Oh, it's
Um,
hilarious.
or maybe he's not even there, and they've slipped him out the back door, and it's all for show. Who knows?
You never know, man. You really don't. Not with this crowd. Not with this
Mm-mm.
crowd, and who he sold out, and who he had a little USB of hidden video. Who some judge that he said, "Listen, you don't give me this deal, then yeah."
They're
Isn't that
gonna.
how this works?
They are. Whoever he pissed off is. I can't even imagine. Uh, I'd love to be a fly on the wall in so many of these houses. J Lo, Jay Z, Beyonce, all these names that are coming out. I would. It just makes me smile to know that there's some spreading going on, and I would love it if Christy Teigen and all these fuckers went down for something, and or even just humiliated them, and put their shit after everything that they've, especially Christy Teigen, what a nasty bitch.
She is nasty.
Yeah, I would just some justice. I'm in the mood for some justice.
Me too.
Hmm.
You never know. It is a house of cards, and once one person falls, it usually
Yeah,
indicts multiple people. And I'm sure, like we already know, it's an octopus with all these legs, or a spider web, however you want to look at it. And it's like it's almost never ending. It's going back and going around, and all these different people are. It's like a tapestry. It's just like. I I mean, I do hope that we will see some justice, and I want to hope that he's not out somewhere made some deal, because he deserves to be punished. I mean, he does. You know, like if you
I think
harm
this
people.
web, I just, there's just this web to be exposed. And I know I've said it 100 times that it starts with going inside, and, hopefully, well, people are going to do what they're going to do, but I would like to see a lot more healing on the planet. I'd like to see a
Yeah,
lot more.
like integration.
I'd like to see a lot of healing and a lot of love, and um, you know, some discourse that's not about divide and conquer, but solutions, and really addressing the true, like the true power of our sacred sexual energy, and healing, and yeah.
Yeah, you said it. We need solution-based
Mhm.
therapy, talking,
Mhm.
help for people that maybe even got caught up in this and want to get out. You know what I mean? Like it's all invasive, and that's another thing, is like you do kind of have to hold some level of compassion and empathy for some people, especially if they were brought into it as a kid. Like that is a
Yeah.
whole like victim, and also like weird like what is it, Stockholm syndrome type of
Yeah.
behavior. They were psychologically manipulated, so it's like we need to extend some empathy too for just the
Mhm.
humans that were caught into it, and then they got blackmailed themselves, and so now they're stuck. And
Yeah.
um
Maybe if
but
we
as far as
stopped shooting bombs, maybe
yeah.
if everybody stopped fighting for war and started fighting, not even fighting, but holding peace and wanting, I'm disgusted at how attached to people the war, and the excuses being made when I think of all the money, and it's just the dark web, that when there's so much that could be done with that money, there's plenty for everybody. And
I'll
it's
always be anti-war, and it kind of doesn't
yeah,
matter the war, like,
yeah.
but especially the ones that the US is involved in. Like, obviously, I can't help little skirmishes in South America or wars between Ukraine and Russia. It's none of my fucking
I was
business.
gonna
I
say, it's
don't live
not
in
even
those
we shouldn't
countries.
be worried about it. It's not our business.
We shouldn't. We should be worried about our borders. We should be worried about America. We should be worried about fertility. We should be worried about all kinds of stuff. We should be
Mental
worried about the
health.
Federal Reserve. We should be worried about the banksters that run our world. We should be worried about New World Order and these fucking creatures. Like, there's a lot of stuff we could be worried about, and we shouldn't have to be worried about foreign wars. It's dumb.
Mm-mm.
Like,
No,
but we will
no.
see what happens this coming week. Maybe there'll be some more disclosure. You never know.
Yeah.
Oh, did you also see that Usher came out and said that his account got hacked and erased?
Oh, I didn't. I was seeing that people saying it got erased. I didn't see the hack part. Sure. Okay.
Yeah, it got hacked. Whoops. Right at this convenient time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
sure.
Well, we'll see what this week has to hold. We have a eclipse coming up, which will be wrapping up our eclipse season on the 2nd. So that's
Hell
always
yeah. What is
mm,
next Sunday? Sorry, my phone is.
the first. No, the
Or next
29th.
Monday. Okay.
I think. Well, I have to go testify at a trial on the 1st,
Oh,
30th,
really?
Monday. Yeah, there was a drunk driver. It was a woman. She was just parked down at the end of the road, and she was kind of halfway in the road, and then she got out to pee, and I was like, "Are you okay?" And she just started yelling at me and calling me all sorts of names, and then I was like, "Well, fuck you." And then she said, "I have a kid in here, and what do you?" So then I was actually concerned. So I was like, if there's a kid in that car, I am calling the police. Like she's either on drugs, she's fucked, or there's something.
Right.
So I did, and they arrested her, and it's been a year and a half, year later, and so I have to actually go in. And I was talking to the attorney. I'm like, well, what does she do? I'm just curious. I was thinking he was going to say homeless, right? It's like, oh, she's an attorney in Texas. I was like, oh, snap.
What an idiot.
So she's representing herself after getting rid of 2 attorneys and dragging it on. She's going to represent herself. So I get to go face her in court and remember
Well,
me?
that's fun times. Good luck. I'm sure that's always fun dealing with some crazy. I'll have to tell you about some like off the show, some interesting drama. Like I'm like an outsider watching, but it is like with one of my neighbors, and like it's not, this is how I know for a fact it's not always men. Like there are some crazy fucking
Oh,
ladies out
for
there.
sure.
Like and whew, I'll have to tell you later, Kim. But court, that
All
sounds
right.
fun. Shoot. Get
All
yourself a
right.
coffee, go in there, girl. Call me and tell me how it went after.
I will for sure. I
It's kind
will.
of
And I
dramatic.
will. What's
It's
that?
dramatic. I said it's kind of dramatic having to like be a witness
Oh,
in
I'm sure
court.
it's going to be. I'm all up
I
for it
said
too. I'm walking there like, remember me?
order.
She was, and the answer is probably no. She doesn't remember me. She was whatever she was. She was on whatever she was. So it should be
She ain't
interesting.
gonna know you. Shoot.
Yeah.
Well,
Yes.
guys, like, share, comment if you have questions.
Yes. Thank
If
you
you
for
guys
the
want to add
reminder.
anything to the topic, feel free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we will see you next Monday. Same time, same dot channel.
We'll fill you in on Kim's court drama.
Yeah.
Good
All
night,
right,
guys. Good
sweetie.
night,
Have a
Kim.
good
Love
night.
you. Bye.
Peace.